Hey everyone, it's Independent Many, and as promised, I am finally making a little video for you guys about education and my experience, especially over this past year of teaching during this time in history. I just wanted to start by telling you a little bit about myself and letting you know that I've been teaching for several years. It's something that I've always felt called to, and so I wanted to talk a little bit more about that. When I talk about teaching being a calling, it's partially probably because I grew up helping my mom at church. She would help in and volunteer in the nursery to take care of kids. So even when I was really young, I was older than nursery age, but I'd be in with my mom and helping her take care of the kids in the nursery at our church. And then that kind of switched into me helping with the children's program, and then eventually helping with youth group up through middle school and high school. So I really have always worked with kids, even since I was a kid myself. My first job was babysitting, and I always really felt like I connected well with children. For whatever reason, I'm able to understand usually where they're coming from. And so in education, that's been a huge asset because I'm able to build relationships, and kids know I have a little bit of tough love, some good boundaries that I establish, but also they know that I care about them and that I genuinely care about them, which is so important, obviously, when you're working with kids. And so it's something that I've always loved doing. I especially like working with kind of the challenging kids, the ones that maybe don't have the best reputation in the school or with their peers or with the staff. But I really like connecting with children, and more than teaching them reading, writing, arithmetic, which I do enjoy teaching them, I also really love just building up their character, and I do love getting to help kids see the potential that they have themselves. I enjoy getting to connect with them and let them know that adults make mistakes, and we're learning too. And so I feel like I am a very effective teacher. It's one of the areas in my life that I'm very confident about. So going into this school year, I was a little nervous because I had taken last school year off. So when everything started changing and it went to online in our area, it was around March. I think in most of the United States it was around March of 2020 that the schools closed and everybody went to online learning. I wasn't working at that time. I had taken the year off to stay home with my two young kids, and so I had planned to substitute teach, but that I had kind of gotten right in the system right around the time that everything started happening, and so I wasn't working. So the beginning of this school year, 2020 to 2021, was my first experience with online learning, and so I was a little nervous, but I was also, eager to make it as positive as possible for my students. And I have to admit that this school year actually had started off really smoothly. I had a smaller group of students than I'd had for several years. The maximum, I teach second grade currently, and the maximum in my state and my district is 26 students. And I had been at that hard cap, they call it, of 26 students the last several years that I've been teaching. So to have only 15 students this year already just made it so much more enjoyable to be able to really connect with each kid and to have the time to invest in each kid. It kind of made it a little bit easier to go into this online remote teaching experience. And I had a really great group of students. One thing that I had been a little bit not nervous really about, but just kind of like not sure how it would work out, was having the families so involved, because of course a lot of times the parents or relatives were there in the background with their kids, and that's just a little bit different to have your teaching observed by parents and families as well as the kids. So that actually ended up being a huge highlight for me. I think partially because of social distancing and lockdown and all of that, just having that more social connection was really beneficial. But I got to know families better than I probably ever have before. And I think that it helped them to see the teaching side of things, and it helped me to see the parenting side of things for them. And we got more connected with families, which I really enjoyed. So online teaching was actually pretty positive. My kids did pretty well academically, but of course, I was looking at everything through this lens of, like, we're making the best of the situation that we're in. So then we switched. All of a sudden, I'm in very blue liberal Washington State, and or at least Western Washington State, and it was really weird. I noticed right around January of 2021 that all of these people in our government, local government, who had been pushing this entire time so strongly against in-person education and again, for mask mandates and all of this, that they were now equally pushing for schools to open up. And that had been something they'd been so against for so long. And it just was like instant. It felt like to me that that changed, shifted right around January. So you can kind of connect some dots there on why that might be the case. But so we switched to a hybrid learning experience. Well, in my district, we had some things that were kind of interesting where the teachers were actually given the choice, which I don't think that they were. I haven't heard of it in any other district. But the teachers were given the choice of whether they wanted to return in person or they wanted to stay remote. And I live with my in-laws, who are in a higher risk category and are also very liberal. And so for their peace of mind, I chose to stay remote. And so what was weird was that I ended up being in my school, that all of my grade level teachers, we all chose to stay remote. And so for the hybrid or in-person classroom, I ended up being the one that is teaching them. So I am teaching from home through the computer, but I'm teaching the in-person class. So it's really this it's totally different than the beginning of the year had been with remote teaching, with everybody being online. It's a whole nother beast, and it's been crazy. But we've gotten into the swing of things, and even that's going kind of smoothly as far as routine and academics and everything else. But the reason I'm going into all this detail about all of this year is that I wanted to share that my online teaching experience had been pretty positive. But what changed things for me was seeing the students in their masks. So when I was teaching them at home, they of course were in their home and could be in front of the computer with their masks off, and I could be without my mask on. And so when I was teaching them, I could still see their faces, they could see each other's faces. So we were isolated in distance, but there was actually, in a lot of ways, I felt more connection than there currently is, where the students are all in their desks or in their seats at their desks. They are fully masked throughout the day. They can't eat they can't eat in the classroom. They can have water bottles and take little sips, but I mean, they have to take a sip really quickly with their mask pulled down just a little and then put it right back up over their noses. And it's just really depressing. It's been weird and very surreal. It took like a good week of mentally adjusting, and I did not think it would be that difficult because I'd already been teaching online. But it something about it struck a chord with me where it just felt wrong. It just really felt wrong. And with where I was coming from, I was still hearing myself telling kids, because I have to enforce the rules of the classroom and of the school. And so I was still having to remind kids, no, pull your mask up, no, get your mask up over your nose, or, no, so-and-so, you can't move a foot to your right to be closer to a friend that you want to talk to and haven't seen for a year in person. That's a foot that way is not safe, but where you are, you're perfectly safe. And the desks have to be 3 feet from each other, and the students have to be 6 feet from. They do have an in-person adult in the classroom with them, a para-educator who is working with me, and she's been really great. So it was just so surreal. I felt like I was just this Siri, in the computer trying to teach. And um, I found myself saying more and more to kids things that they needed to do that I don't even believe in. I don't see the science behind that supports. And so I just was feeling more and more hypocritical. And honestly, like I'm a part of this brainwashing machine. So, anyway, all that to say, it's been really a soul searching experience for me this entire year of teaching, but especially since going to this kind of weird hybrid model that we're in right now. But, I'll have to also share my expectations. So, when I heard about all of the mandates for what we would have to do in the classrooms, honestly, I didn't want the students to return to school in my area because it was so late in the year. I felt like it would have been better to just um, continue with what we already had that was working. I still feel like maybe that would have been the best choice, but um, I thought for sure, having worked with students in the schools obviously for years, I was picturing previous classes with, 7 and 8-year-olds who pick their noses and who go to the bathroom and you're not quite sure if they wash their hands or not, and who sit on the carpet and grab their shoes while they're sitting crisscross and then stick their fingers in their mouths, or you know what I mean, like just be, being kids, and they can be pretty gross. And so I remember thinking like there's no way they're going to keep their masks on. They're going to be filthy masks, like they're going to be touching them all the time, and how are we possibly going to keep them in their seats for 4 hours straight? Let alone right by their desks. And they're not going to be able to have materials or get up and walk around the room or have circle time or do all of the best practices that we've been trained for years to do, where they don't, we don't do just one type of learning. We try to differentiate for different kids. And we're still trying to do that, but it's mostly shuffling kids from one program to another. And um, anyway, I thought that them being in person, that there would be no way they'd be able to do it. But what actually became almost more disturbing was how quickly they had adjusted. Because, these kids, I teach second grade, like I said, 7 and 8-year-olds. Um, they had only been in school for, maybe preschool, kindergarten, and part of first grade. So they don't have a lot of experience to go off of, which might be part of why they adjusted so well. But instead of them, squirming and pushing back about all of the mandates, they actually were going right along with them. They were just going ahead and keeping their masks on. And, we had to give a couple of reminders here and there, like I said, which made me feel really awkward, but not nearly as many as I thought they would. And, they rarely try to go to the bathroom too often, or, they don't really ask to go to the nurse, which they can't really do. The nurse has to come to them. But was kind of alarming for me to see how quickly these kids would adapt to these new rules and guidelines for the classroom, but also how little it really resembles what I love about education. So, anyway, I just wanted to give a little view into what teaching is like right now, and a little bit about what's going on with me and teaching. Um, but part of the reason that I wanted to share all of this is that today I actually turned in a leave request for next school year. So I'm a little nervous because I was not financially planning to not be working, or at least to not have this my guaranteed position. I, as most of you know, I'm moving soon, and we have just a lot of things up in the air. So there were a lot of things that went into this decision, but the main one is that I really feel like I don't support what's happening in the schools right now in a lot of ways. And I mean, we could talk about critical race theory. That's a whole other topic having to do with education that I don't agree with. But being in a very liberal field and in a very liberal part of Washington state, I also feel like it's wisest for me to kind of step back before it's mandated for me to step back. I don't plan to get the job, and I have a feeling in our area that's going to be required by the fall. We'll see. I hope I'm wrong on that. Um, but it seems like what I'm seeing in the news, it seems like the federal government's not going to make that mandate, but that they're pushing it to the states to do that. And unfortunately, in my state, I know where my governor will take us with that. It's the same way he's been taking all of the decisions I've been seeing him make the last year and a half, which is pretty much right along the lines of what the administration in DC are saying and doing. So, yeah, it's kind of saddening to me to move away from this position that I've been in. I love the school I teach at. I love the staff there. I love the principal that I work under. There are a lot of really great things about that school and that district, but I hope to still be involved in education in some way, shape, or form. I know that that's what's been placed on my heart, and so, I'm kind of looking to God to see what's going to come next. I definitely don't claim to know, but I have some ideas. I have some things I've considered that I might do this coming year, and I'm just kind of taking this leap of faith. But I wanted to share where I've been coming from this year, and like I said, I feel like one of my main purposes in putting all of this out there is not just to talk about myself, but just I want us to be able to connect. And so please, in the comments, let me know if you have stories that you can relate to, either as a parent, as a student, or as an educator. Let me know if you've experienced something completely different in your district and where you're coming from, like what state or what area of the world. If you have things that are similar to what I've experienced, I'd love to hear that as well. But I did want to share one more thing. So in my last video, or my last live stream, I shared a quote by Thomas Merton, and it was a prayer where he was saying, amongst other things, that he hoped that the desire to do God's will meant that he was doing God's will. And, or that pleased, I guess I should say that the desire to do God's will would please God. And I definitely hope that I have that desire in what I'm doing. I know that I do. But I hope that it does, what I'm doing is pleasing to God. What I wanted to share is this morning, every day I get a verse sent to me by a local radio station, Christian radio station. And so I was thinking about, I had to submit this form today saying whether I wanted to take that year off or not next year. And I was like, I wanted to grab my Bible, but I wasn't nearby. And I was like, I'm just going to look at the verse of the day and see if I can get some kind of guidance from it. So I wanted to read this to you guys. It says, "One day, as he saw the crowds gathering, Jesus went up on the mountainside and sat down. His disciples gathered around him, and he began to teach them." Matthew 5:1-2. So I wanted to share that because I don't know, it kind of just went right along with where I feel like I want to do God's will, but it's so hard sometimes to discern God's will. Because as I'm reading that verse, you guys can tell me what you guys think about it. But as I read that verse, my first thought was, okay, maybe I'm supposed to keep teaching because it's talking about Jesus being a teacher and that he's teaching the disciples. But then as I was thinking about it more, I was really feeling like, and I am by no means Jesus, so I am not trying to say that I am Jesus in any way. But it made me think of how it said that he went up on the mountainside and how he was teaching the disciples. And I was thinking, I feel like, in a way, I feel like I'm supposed to be still teaching, but I feel like I'm supposed to be getting the word out like I've been trying to do and connect people. And I do. I feel like that's kind of my calling for this period of time. So I hope I'm discerning God's will correctly. I hope that my desire to please him will in fact please him. And I hope that you guys will continue along with me in this journey and see where we all go. Anyway, please let me know your thoughts, and I will hopefully be able to do a live stream or get out another video here soon. I have some things I'm working on, and I hope that you are all doing well. So God bless you. God bless the United States of America, and I will see you all soon.